I'm Sarah Wayland, and I'm here to talk to you about the rumble rage cycle in your child's behavior. I'm a special needs care navigator and relationship development intervention, or RDI, certified consultant at Guiding Exceptional Parents, a company I founded to help guide exceptional parents. I'm going to start this presentation by talking about the brain. So the brain systems we're going to talk about today are divided into three subsystems. The first system is what I call survival brain, and this is the part of the brain that you'll see in the lower part of this diagram with the brainstem and the cerebellum. And this is the part of the brain that just keeps you alive. It's responsible for all the parts of your body that are just involved with making sure that you eat, that you breathe, that your heart beats, that you escape dangerous things and don't get killed. So those are all things that are governed in the brainstem and cerebellum. The next system is the limbic system, and in the limbic system, this is where we process emotions and also memories, where memories and habits are formed using the limbic system. The last brain area we're going to talk about is the neocortex. And the neocortex is a section of the brain where higher order thinking, language, reasoning, those kinds of processes happen. And we're going to talk about how these three brain areas come into play while your child is having some kind of stressful reaction to something. So in the 1960s, Paul MacLean came up with a concept he called the triune brain. And he talked about the lizard brain, the mammalian brain, and the human brain. I've actually decided not to use that terminology in this presentation because it turns out that lizards actually have a neocortex and a limbic system and a brainstem and cerebellum. It's just that those regions are smaller in them than they are in mammals or primates. So we're going to talk about the triune brain, but instead of thinking of it as different types of structures in the different brains, we're going to talk about which one dominates your behavior. So I mentioned earlier we have survival brain, which is governed by the brainstem and cerebellum. And this is responsible for keeping you alive, autopilot kind of behaviors. And this is what triggers a response of fight, flight, or freeze. And this is important in that when your body is literally in threat of not existing anymore, survival brain kicks in and does what it can to keep you alive. The emotional brain is responsible, as I said, for emotions, memories, and habits. And it is responsible for instinctually based decisions. And the thinking brain, as I'm calling it here, is the neocortex, or that outer layer of the brain, which is very large in humans and a little less large in primates, but it's there even in lizards. And this is the part of the brain that's responsible for higher order thinking, executive functioning, language, imagination, abstract thinking, awareness of consciousness. These are all things that happen in the thinking brain, and it's what allows you to reason through something, and it's where rational thought comes into play. So now we're going to talk about the rumble rage cycle as presented by Brenda Smith Miles in her absolutely wonderful book, High Functioning, Autism and Difficult Moments. The rumble rage cycle you can see presented on this slide. And what you need to think about is on the y-axis is how dysregulated your child is. And then time is on the x-axis. So what happens is you're moving along, having a fine time, and your child is very regulated. They're feeling calm. You can talk to them. They can talk to you. They're able to express their feelings and so forth. Those are the teachable moments in this graph. So not at all dysregulated, really doing pretty well. And then something happens, and that first dotted line represents the moment that something happens, and your child is not doing so well. Most parents know when something's happened with their kid. They start doing what Brenda Smith Miles calls rumbling. And in rumbling, what she does, what your child will do, is they may get a look in their eyes. They may have a harder time doing what you're asking them to do. And if you can figure out what led to having them rumble and address it, then they can calm down and they will, be teachable again. But if you can't figure it out, then they're going to go past that second line, which I call the point of no return, which is when they trip into a full-blown temper tantrum or a rage. And in a rage, there's nothing you can do in a rage. All you can do is keep everybody safe. And rages last for different amounts of time for different children. So for some kids, the rage will last, 30 seconds. Other kids, 10 minutes, maybe a couple of hours. Some kids, it lasts literally days or maybe even weeks. So, kids are just very, very different about how the rage presents itself in them. Eventually, if you can manage to avoid re-triggering the rage, the child will get through it, they will calm down, and they move into what's called recovery mode. And in recovery mode, the child usually feels just horrible about what happened during the rage. And they, again, kids respond really differently in this phase too. They may want comfort from you. They want to know that you still love them, even though they just did this terrible thing. Or they may hide because they're so embarrassed. Kids have lots of different responses to this. And that can be really hard if they want comfort from you and you're still feeling like, you just did this thing and I'm still wound up and upset. So that can be really hard for families. Next is eventually as they recover, they become more and more regulated and they go back to being teachable and being able to reason with you. So, when they're in that teachable phase, then the thinking brain and the emotional brain and the survival brain are all active. Everything's working in synchrony, everything's doing what it needs to do. And so the child is just, functioning at optimum level. It's important to remember that during the rumbling and recovery phases, the emotional brain is kicking in, and that cuts off the thinking brain. So once that emotional brain revs up and is in high gear, really all rational thought shuts down, and even ability to process language shuts down. Really all you can do in this phase is comfort or address the problem. But you really can't talk to a kid in that moment. You just, have to comfort them and or give them the space they need, whatever it is, or address whatever is causing the trouble. When they are in the rage, it's survival brain. It's that brainstem and cerebellum that kick in. And survival brain, remember, is fight, flight, or freeze. And so if you have a child who is in survival brain mode, their thinking brain is not working and their emotional brain isn't working. So, a lot of kids, when they're in a rage, you try to hug them or comfort them and they go, get away from me, I don't want to talk to you. That's because they're in survival brain mode. They are in fight, flight, or freeze. And you need to remember that. So what strategies work in each of these phases? In the teachable moment, everything works. You can ask them to think about what might happen if something comes up, how they might want to respond. Everything's working. Language works, having them reason about what's going on works, and so on. So these are the times when you want to practice how you're going to handle it when you encounter something that doesn't make you feel so good. In the rumbling and recovery phases, comforting works. Again, this is the limbic system being activated, and that activation means that you're responding well to positive emotions, but you're also responding very poorly to big negative emotions, which can trip kids into the rage. Again, in the rage, all you can do is keep everyone safe. Those other strategies, trying to make your child think, trying to comfort them, it just doesn't work in those stages. You really just need to keep everyone safe and try to keep harm from being done. One of the things that's really important to remember is a person can look calm and regulated on the outside, but inside they're a seething mass of emotions and turmoil. And the pressure can build before you even realize what's going on. So what you see is something that looks like this, where the gray represents what's going on inside, but that blue to red line represents what's going on outside. So what parents who have kids who are pressure cooker kids experience is kid is fine, 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 and blammo, and they don't understand what's going on. It's important to remember that for the child inside, what's likely going on is they are rumbling, but they're keeping a lid on it because they know that, you know, they shouldn't blow up like that. But then at some point they're unable to contain it. The other thing I wanted to mention here is that the adult curve follows along with that child curve. I'm going to go back here and where the adult curve is a little more obvious. The adult curve goes right along with the child's curve, the rumble rage cycle. And I always say Brenda Smith Miles is being really kind to the adults when she drew this picture, because I don't know about you, but for me, that adult curve can go right up there with my kids. If we are having an all-out rage, it's so hard to stay calm in the face of a thunderstorm like that. And so we adults, we have our own rumble rage cycle. And if you can stay calm, if you can envision yourself as a rock in a turmoil of you know, a river rushing around you, but you are this solid, calm rock, that maybe you can stay calm, take some deep breaths. And I think we also all know that if you can stay calm, your child will calm themselves down faster. And this is using a process, actually a biological process that Stuart Shanker calls the interbrain, where your child is looking to you to help modulate their own responses. And if you are calm, it helps them stay calm. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what kind of calm do you want? Do you want a child who is bottling it all up inside and then just might blow unpredictably? Or do you want a child who's actually calm and not blowing up at every uh, instance of something that might be dysregulating for them? So one of the things that we need to do as parents is figure out how we can keep our children calm and on both the outside and the inside. It's also important to remember that it takes energy to modulate your arousal. Um, when you are out of energy, you cannot modulate your arousal. So kids who are worn out, tired, exhausted, they can't modulate their emotions as effectively because it takes energy to do that. So just this is one reason that a lot of families will report, well, my kid is fine in school, but then they come home and they totally lose it and they're out of control with me. It's because they've been using all their energy to stay in control at school and they just have nothing left when they get home. So when you see a child who's starting to lose control, think about what are the triggers that might be leading to that rumbling. Can I address those triggers? And likewise, if they're losing their ability to self-regulate a lot, think about what is draining their resources at other times in the day that leaves them with no ability to modulate. If you can turn yourself into a detective, then you will be able to help your child learn how to modulate their own arousal. So that's the webinar on the rumble rage cycle. If you have questions or want to talk about this further, please contact me at wayland@guidingexceptionalparents.com, or you can call me at 301-768-8503. I would love to talk to you about your child.